Join me as I take on the challenge of figuring out what's really making you sick. Is it the flu or just a cold? Let's dive into the symptoms and see if I can crack the code. When it comes to colds and flu, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and many of us have been led to believe that they're basically the same thing. But the truth is, they're two very different illnesses with different symptoms, different treatments, and different consequences if not managed properly. Understanding the difference between the two is crucial, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. One of the main reasons people get confused about whether they have a cold or the flu is that the symptoms can be similar, especially in the early stages. You might have a stuffy nose, a sore throat, and feel generally under the weather. But as the illness progresses, the differences start to become more apparent. You might start to feel extremely fatigued or develop a high fever. These are all signs that something more serious is going on. The problem is, many of us aren't sure what we're dealing with until it's too late, and we've either let the illness linger or sought out the wrong treatment. Another issue is that the terminology gets thrown around pretty loosely. We hear people saying, "I have the flu," when all they have is a bad cold, or vice versa. This not only leads to confusion, but also contributes to the spread of misinformation. We need to get clear on what we're dealing with, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. What's more, the symptoms of a cold and the flu can be so similar that even doctors can misdiagnose them. I mean, think about it. If you go to the doctor with a fever, a cough, and a sore throat, they might prescribe you antibiotics, but if it's actually the flu, those antibiotics won't do much to help you. That's why it's so important to understand the differences between the two. When it comes to colds, the symptoms are generally milder and more localized. You might have a runny nose, a cough, and a sore throat, but you'll likely still be able to go about your daily business. You might not feel great, but you won't be completely debilitated either. Colds are also usually caused by viruses, and they can be treated with over-the-counter meds and plenty of rest. Flu symptoms, on the other hand, are much more severe and can be systemic. You'll often experience fever, chills, and body aches, which can leave you feeling exhausted and weak. The flu is also caused by viruses, but it can lead to serious complications like pneumonia, especially in high-risk groups like the elderly and young children. One key difference between colds and flu is the duration. Colds usually last anywhere from 7 to 14 days, whereas the flu can linger for weeks. You might start to feel better after a few days, but then the fatigue and weakness can last for weeks afterwards. The flu is also much more contagious than a cold, and it can spread quickly through communities and households. Another key difference is the severity of the symptoms. While a cold might make you feel under the weather, the flu can be downright debilitating. You'll often be stuck in bed for days, unable to do anything but sleep and drink fluids. The flu can also lead to serious complications, like sinus infections and bronchitis. The good news is that by understanding the differences between colds and flu, you can take better care of yourself and avoid misdiagnosis. You'll know when to see a doctor and when to just ride out the symptoms at home. You'll also be able to take steps to prevent the flu in the first place, like getting vaccinated and practicing good hygiene. In summary, understanding the differences between colds and flu is crucial for taking control of your health. By recognizing the symptoms and knowing when to seek treatment, you can avoid unnecessary doctor's visits, reduce your risk of complications, and get back to feeling your best faster. Thanks for watching, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever been misdiagnosed with a cold or the flu? What was your experience like? And if you're interested in more health-related videos, be sure to check out my other content.